This week on the Markcast, we're back to a pre-taped show, not a live show. We got 3 guests, though. Mike Beamish, Hall of Fame reporter. Keep getting those Hall of Fame reporters. It's great. Tim Baines and Tim Capper, the Tims, of course, joining Reed. And what are we talking about there?
Yeah, we have the big Alouettes home opener this weekend, Montreal Alouettes. So we talked with Tim Capper about that.
Something was just seemed to be a little bit off with Vernon Adams, in my opinion. Whether it was throwing in triple coverage, double coverage. Some of his passes were really, really short, which isn't really Vernon. It's not his MO. He's usually pretty spot on.
And then we have the Ottawa REDBLACKS, taking on America's CFL team, the BC Lions. We are going to go with that. And so we talked with both of them.
Ottawa has really, really struggled offensively for game 1, 1 yards passing. And I think game 2 was a little over 170. That's 250 yards of passing offense in 2 games. That's not the CFL. That's not what we've come to know.
Interesting interview as well with Mike Beamish. We talk all about the new BC Lions ownership with Amar Doman and, the excitement, kind of rebuilding that franchise up in BC. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of good CFL stuff.
One of Doman's first statements was that he wanted to change the fact that young people in downtown Vancouver who are wearing jerseys are wearing Seahawks jerseys and not BC Lions jerseys. And I don't think it's strictly a demographic thing.
And also, we're going to discuss the Elks being stupid and getting like 14 people on the COVID list. What are we doing, Edmonton? Let's get it together. Yeah,
just a good show. We've been accused of being the CFL sellouts, so we might as well roll with it. The episode graphic this week is you live long enough to be a hero, to die a villain, or however that Aaron Eckhart quote goes, and that is what we're going with.
And finally, on that note, I got a cool gift from one of our listeners, friend of the show, William. We'll open that up on the podcast. Well, it's already open, but we'll show you what I got in the mail on the podcast. That's all coming up this week on the Markcast. Welcome back. It's Friday morning. Good Friday morning to you all. Welcome to the Markcast.
It's just us again today, Paul. It's just us. We did the live thing. We did all that. It's just you and me again in this Zoom room recording.
And no feedback, no nothing. And we're not. That's done and over with. That's done and over with. Like, I like the service. I'm not gonna don't get me wrong. I like the service a lot. It just was like, wow, what is happening right now?
Well, I think, if there had been a game today, I think it would have been neat to do, or last night, I guess. I'm not totally off on the idea of doing the live shows. I think people get feedback.
Now, and now that you've figured out what went wrong, I'm not beating you up for it, because I don't appreciate when people beat other people up for things that they apologize for and own. So, basically now I'm open to do it again. Especially since I've got some free time on my hands, personal life speaking.
Well, there you go. We Paul and I got fired up with off-camera talk before. It should be a good show today. I have a lot of preface-y stuff, and then we have a lot of really good interviews coming up. I guess I'll play the guest first off. Mike Beamish, we're adding to our slate of CFL Hall of Fame reporters, like by the likes of Dan Ralph, Steve Simmons. Mike is going to come on. We're talking all about Amar Doman. Remember my BC Lions, the new ownership. Mike is coming on. Mike covered the Lions for decades. He comes on to talk. We did all that. Tim Baines, our friend of the show, comes on again. We talk about the REDBLACKS, their home opener this weekend. And it was almost like Tim also watches wrestling and AEW. So like halfway through the interview, Tim goes, like, why are we still talking about the REDBLACKS? Like, can we talk about AEW and CM Punk? And I go, so we do some CM Punk, we do a little AEW. And I just finished with Tim Capper, late night for him. He's on the East Coast, but he is with the Alouettes, because the REDBLACKS have their home opener, and then the Alouettes both have their home openers. Can't talk. Openers this weekend. So I felt like that was a good slate of guests.
What did you think about the pop that CM Punk got?
Well, good pop. CM Punk debuted on Friday. A lot of things happened over the weekend. Viewership though this week was only up about 200,000 from the previous week for AEW. So I don't know. I have to imagine they would want more than a 200K viewership increase.
It'll eventually get there. You got, Punk dropped a hint the other night, which was Wednesday night, that someone else is coming. He's also writing little initials on his sneakers that kind of hint that other people are coming after Mr. Danielson. So it's going to be interesting to see if all four of these people actually come to AEW, and I think that'll matter. That'll broaden up a viewership more than 200,000 viewers, definitely.
Tim Baines, look what you did here. We're already talking about the CFL podcast. We're already talking about wrestling. The episode title this week is the CFL Sellouts, because we have been accused a lot of basically like the XFL isn't happening, USFL isn't happening. So we are like going to the third prettiest girl at the room, right? Like you're at the dance, you need a dance partner. Here is the deal. When there is XFL news to talk about, we'll talk about XFL news. Spoiler alert, it's not this week. When there's USFL news, when there's fan control football news, spoiler alert, no fan control football news this week. But this talk about the XFL. Mark Perry is putting XFL Week in Review, the Monday show, on hold. That is how not any of that. So if we want to do a weekly show, which I like to do, we're going to talk about football that's happening, like the CFL.
Yeah. And it's leading into that topic. You had a very interesting conversation you shared with me. And go ahead. And I want to respond. I'll say something.
I just want anyone listening to this, anyone watching this, I just want you to get a glimmer of what Paul and I, because I know Paul deals with this too. Paul's been off social media. We're trying to do the CFL. We're trying to do all football stuff. Talking with the gentlemen online, we get flamed, right? Okay, don't post the XFL, don't post the CFL. So I'm sitting there Sunday night, dinner, notifications are blowing up. So I DM the guy. I'm like, hey man, like what's going on? Like, you just talk a lot. I'm not even in this conversation. He goes, well, you need to come up to a CFL game. I go, oh, no, we are. We're going to the Grey Cup. We're going to the October 16th. He goes, yeah, but you need to come here. You need to come to Calgary. Here's a list of the dates. I go, dude, I have weddings booked every Saturday from now through December. Like the Saturday, except for the one that we're going to in October. Because I won't cancel on one of the weddings that have booked us from anywhere from 6 months to 2 years out. This is just a hobby to us, and this isn't. We're
exploiting it, basically.
Yeah.
That's what I was alluding to. Let me tell you guys something right here. Reed has a full-time job. I have a full-time job. Sometimes our full-time jobs get in the way of us doing this full-time. Guess what? This doesn't pay as well as the other full-time jobs do. That's the truth. So if you're going to get up in arms about us not going to a game that you would like us to go to, please subscribe. Go ahead and buy some stuff. And when we do live shows, throw us a super chat. Whatever it takes to make sure that this becomes a full-time income for us so we can go to these games that you so desperately want us at. Otherwise, we have to pay the bills. And I'm sorry, but that's the way it works. When Reed needs to handle his wedding videography, his business videography, he needs to handle it. No interruptions, no guilting. When I need to go to work and I need to deal with what I need to deal with at work, no interruptions, no guilting. There we go.
It's our average wedding price is a lot higher than what YouTube's paying for any of these users. But the point is, we're trying, we did 2 hours worth of interviews and have all this stuff. It's not quite that long. It just took a long time. But we have all these people coming up. Anyway, I don't want to get into but just if you want a taste of kind of what we're dealing with. On a positive note, I have channeled my inner Rod Peterson. Rod Peterson calls the Vegas Golden Knights Canada's hockey team, right? And that makes a lot of people upset. I was talking with Tim today. I'm calling the BC Lions America's CFL team.
Bold.
We got the Cowboys are America's team, America's NFL team. So I am on the record. Well, that's what they say. I'm on the record that the BC Lions are America's CFL team.
We'll see how well this holds up.
Anyway, last thing before we get into the show. Speaking of the BC Lions, so we talked about McLeod Bethel-Thompson. He immediately lost the next game, got pulled from the game. We talked about the BC Lions last week. They lost to the Elks in horrendous fashion. Are we CFL jinx, Paul?
I hope not. I really hope not.
Who should we set our sights on this week?
Who are the Argonauts playing?
Fate has jinxed. Fate has jinxed the Edmonton Elks, which we will get into here with our lead story. But
let's look at the Argonauts schedule going forward, and then we'll decide on the next team to jinx there, just for my benefit.
Yeah, I did say I told Tim Capper this joke, but I'll use it again for you. I feel like me getting off the Elks before they had their big outbreak this week, and we now have 14 players testing positive of COVID. I feel like I got out of the Elks at like literally the right time. It's like if you're at the underage party and you're hanging out drinking and then you leave at the back door like right when the cops show up and like shut the party down. I feel like I got off the Edmonton Elks at like the perfect time.
Like you did. You're seeing the lights from a distance. You're like, okay, I'm going to hop the fence now and get out of here.
Yeah. So anyway, lead story this week, 19.2% of the 73 active practice roster and injured players for the Edmonton, 19.2%, 14 players have tested positive for the Big C. What is your reaction to that?
Guys, what are we doing? Is this an anti-vax thing? We're getting to the point where mandates are going to start coming in. I hope you realize that, right? Like we're getting to the point where mandates are going to start being handed down. Like you can't do certain things and you can't work. Like the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine, which means employers can now require you to have a vaccine, and specifically Pfizer. I don't have Pfizer. I got Moderna, but still I have a vaccine, and employers can start doing that now that the FDA has given full approval to it. So we're getting to the point now where it's like, I don't understand, It's enough to say like 14 people or 15 people, 14 people have it in Edmonton, but I'd like to know what the vaccine numbers are for the Elks. Like of those 14 people, how many are unvaccinated? How many are vaccinated? Is that something that they're telling us? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing right now is they're not coming out. We have a story later on. Ty Katz, one of their players, got suspended for a couple days, or not suspended. He's off for a couple days because he broke protocol. But that's the thing, right? They're not releasing, who was. It was a mix of vaccinated and non-vaccinated. The big deals with this, I don't want to get too COVID-y with everything, but the big deals with this. So Thursday, today's game as we record, Friday, Toronto and Edmonton, there's no way they're playing. There's no way they're going to make this game up. They had talked about it Sunday, Monday of this week of potentially rescheduling for Monday or Tuesday of next week. Like, no way that's happening. Also, the Labor Day game that they're playing next Monday against the Stampeders, that's also kind of in doubt because if you are positive, if it's like a 14-day window that you have to quarantine, we're getting to the point where, and that's why I don't want to get too political with everything, but it's getting to, there's not enough games in this season and bye weeks to accommodate missing games to this degree.
Yep. And the BC Lions, who last played the Elks, no positive cases. So we know that there was something that happened in between that game and when everything started hitting the fan. So interesting.
Yeah. The other thing, 3 Down had reported this was a big, they came out and they said, Trevor Harris, star quarterback, tested positive. Dunk had to do this whole big retraction about that. But it was crazy. Like Sunday night and trying to track just a little bit that I could, really crazy with the outbreak. Supposedly by rule, if the Argos are 85% covered, with player vaccinations, the Elks should have to cover all those all the lost revenue from the tickets, all the lost revenue, refunding fans the games, like all that stuff should come from the Edmonton. I don't believe we have the numbers for how many Argos are totally vaxxed, but that's the rules that they put out at the beginning of the season. So it's very interesting what is going on and the ramifications this is going to have moving forward.
And you would think that the CFL would release those numbers about how many people on the Argos have been vaxxed so that we can clear that up real quick. The transparency is lacking still, guys. The transparency is lacking still.
You would think. Yeah. So, but this is a big thing. And then luckily this kind of all ended this week, that there was a lot of call for a lot of these stadiums to start enforcing, because obviously Winnipeg with the Blue Bombers, they're mandating that you have to show vaccine or, negative test. MLSE had announced last week. Spoiler alert, we are seeing the Counting Crows on Sunday at Merrimore Park, totally open, like it's a park, no seating. We have to show whatever, all that kind of stuff. So this is a thing that is going everywhere. But anyway, Edmonton, right, with the test cases, and then Saskatchewan are the only 2 clubs that have not, as of recording, I'm sure it'll come out tomorrow, but they haven't yet done any sort of thing to call for vaccinations.
And I think they should. I mean, the mandate should be. It feels like the people that got the vaccine are the ones being punished right now because others didn't want to get it. They're saying, you're on my body, my choice, but your choices are affecting other people, and clearly we're seeing the cases of that. So let's reward the people that actually played by the rules.
Well, and what's interesting to me is my Twitter feed is obviously a lot of CFL stuff, and I see so many Rough Rider season ticket holders that are furious that they are scared to go to the games, that they want to go to the games, that they want, and they're like either putting their tickets on hold or they're not going to the games because they are worried about being intermixed, right? And so it's now you're not only upsetting casual fans or whatever. These are like your diehard 9,000 whatever season ticket holders that Saskatchewan has. I'm sure that's wrong, but it's a healthy number of people now that you are upsetting. That is your diehard fan base.
You got to take care of them, and you got to take care of the people that play by the rules. And if those season ticket holders are playing by the rules, they need to be definitely taken care of. And of course, similar policies being announced in BC, Calgary, Hamilton, and Ottawa. We're moving toward a point where this is going to be a mandate. You want to do something, you got to either provide a fresh COVID test or a vaccine. And I honestly think like the French model, where if you need to get a COVID test to go to do something, you have to pay for it yourself. We shouldn't be paying for these things either. The government should be paying for these things. If you want to say, I don't want to get a vaccine, that's your right. But then now you have to pay for a COVID test to do the fun things. Speaking of which, when you go see Counting Crows, do you think they'll play Mr. Jones? Because they don't sometimes.
My wife is a huge Counting Crows fan. Everyone knows Mr. Jones. Everyone knows Mr. Jones. I've seen Counting Crows twice in concert. They played for 2.5 hours. Each time I've seen them play, and I've never heard them play Counting Crows ever in my life.
You mean Mr. Jones?
Yeah, well, whatever I said. Yeah, Mr. Jones.
The name of the band is Counting Crows, and Will Purvis would definitely be upset that you slaughtered their good name. Will Purvis, massive Counting Crows mark.
Well, maybe he could go directly to the concert next time. At least it's in a better venue this year. Sometimes it's at a tough venue that's kind of hard. Anyway, Saskatchewan, they've already had confirmed cases coming from the games. There, it really is getting to a point where they need to figure it out. Ticats, defensive end, Jared Davis. Did I do that right?
That's right. I think that's right.
He broke COVID protocols. He's ineligible to play this week against Montreal. We have Tim Capper coming up talking all about the Alouettes home opener. Basically, I'm sure they were just on the bye week and he went out and did whatever. Because that's the whole thing is if you're not vaccinated, you can't do anything except be in your hotel room or your house or whatever if you're on the road. So I'm sure that they just said that he violated the health and safety protocol, but I'm sure that was he went out and did something, that he wasn't. I don't know how else you break safety protocol on the bye week.
Stay out of the strip clubs if that's what you're doing. Stay out of the strip clubs. That's all I got to say. Interesting.
Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins could be the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, depending on how he plays in their final preseason game this weekend. So,
Roethlisberger's not a spring chicken, so you never know.
I remember when we. Because I think we were talking about a year ago on the podcast, and we were talking about Roethlisberger, and you're like, he's 40. Is his arm going to fall off? What is happening?
He's so old now. It's insane. I was living in Idaho when it was his rookie year, and him and the refs got together and screwed the Seahawks out of their first title. But moving on.
This was great. Dave Naylor, now friend of the show, we can officially say, did a phenomenal interview with Randy Ambrosie about all this elk stuff this week. It was like a big sit down virtual interview on TSN. This is the kind of stuff we need, right? We need Randy Ambrosie. I thought he sounded good. I thought he had a great message. It was like 15 minutes, whatever. I mean, it was a lot of time, right? Talking about getting the players vaccinated, what they're trying to do, looking out for the fans. I thought that this was exactly what you need as a CFL commissioner. They can't force these players to do this, right? It's the same with the NFL. The players union, I think today as we're recording, turned down a submission to do a mandate, right? To change the ruling. So I just thought this was great and I was very happy and I really want to get Ambrosie to follow me back on Twitter. So I'm pretty high on this interview.
Other things that happened in the interview, I guess there was the league is operating under informed guidance that charters will not be exempt from a flight ban on unvaccinated individuals this fall. Interesting.
because they're moving all the players around, right? And because the idea was, okay, we can't use the commercial flights. Well, we charter them, so then it doesn't matter. We'll see. The question is, well, why wouldn't you exempt the charters? And a lot of people I've saw online talk, and they go, well, because you're still going to the airports, right? You're still interacting, going to the charter flights. I think it's basically just, we don't want to make it any easier, right? Like if we can't force people to get vaccines, which right or wrong, whatever you want to do, like we're not going to go out of our way to make it easier. And I think that they're saying like no flight, like can't get on a plane.
I like that idea. I mean, I really do. It's like, again, reward people that got vaccinated. I'm sorry, but that's the way it needs to be now at this point. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So Ambrosie was really, anyway, the big thing about the charter, 3 Down had a statement from the Players Association coming out that basically they don't know that for sure yet with the charters and moving the players around. But they did say on there that, there will be limitations and potential pay loss scenarios for players. This is from the Players Association, as teams may be in the position to lawfully withhold paychecks or terminate contracts if a player cannot accompany the team because vaccines are required for travel.
Damn near sounds like a loophole around a mandate, just like kind of like a mandate without a mandate, if that makes sense. Like it's mandating it for travel, and you're not mandated to get the vaccine to play, but you're mandated for travel. Like, it just seems like it's a mandate to play no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, and if it gets to the point where they're going to terminate, I mean, it's one thing to lose pay for the game, but if you're going to get a contract terminated, I mean, that's the scary thing with the NFL is you have all these players like Cam Newton can break protocol and miss 5 days. And I mean, he might lose his job to Mac Jones, but if you're the 54th man on that roster, right? Like you might not be getting that spot, or if you're the 53rd, whatever, you might be getting cut because you're not vaccinated when, the 54th person is.
And there's someone that, is on a squad team or on like a, not a squad team, but like a practice team, practice squad, or a free agent that's vaccinated, and your job goes to them because they're vaccinated. They don't have any they don't have any restrictions basically. So, I
mean, Cam Newton might lose this. His career might be done because of him and because of how good Mac Jones has been doing this week, because he got the first team reps because of, I have been tracking that a lot in my morning football watching, but Mac Jones could be starting week 1 for the Patriots.
We'll see what happens there. We're going to take a break, toss to Reed's interviews with Mike, Tim, and Tim, and we'll be right back with more CFL and a little bit of the XFL news, kind of, sort of, in a way.
Well, Mike Beamish, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited as a new member of the BC Lions Army. I've recently converted from the Edmonton Elks. So thank you so much for coming on. First off, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Nice, cool weather here for a change. We've had, as you have in Seattle, a long run of hot weather. So it's kind of nice to get some nice cool days for a change.
And it's good to have you on. I appreciate the time. Another CFL Hall of Fame press member joining the ranks of Dan Ralph and I believe Steve Simmons that have also been on. So what have been your thoughts so far of the season this year? We're getting in. Obviously, we want to get into the BC Lions ownership, but I would just like general thoughts on how everything's been going thus far.
Well, I guess, the biggest thing is that there actually is a season, of course, and that is not new news. But I mean, last year there was no season, and finally the Lions and the rest of the CFL are actually playing. They had their home opener last week because of COVID. In the province of British Columbia, the mass gatherings are very limited, but they limited it to 12,500 fans. Different than some other provinces. In Saskatchewan, for instance, they had 33,000 for their home opener. So just the fact that the team is actually playing, I guess, is the biggest news. And hard by that is their ownership change last week as well.
Yeah, really excited about that, right? We come on board, we're all in on the BC Lions now. We get a new, from what, I'm gathering and the reports and things I've read online, a younger for the CFL, maybe a little more progressive thinking. What reactions first off to the big ownership announcement? I mean, it seemed like it came out of the blue to a lot of people.
Well, it did come out of the blue. I mean, David Braley, the previous owner who passed away, unfortunately, last October. He's a Hamilton, Ontario businessman, and he'd basically owned the team for 25 years. In fact, you can go back to 2006, which is 15 years ago, when he first started talking about selling the team. So it's taken all this time, like 15 years. He basically wanted to sell, but when it got down to it, but no one was willing to pay, obviously, the amount that he was asking. And so the new owner, Amar Doman, is a young, relatively young compared to David Braley. He's just over 50. David Braley was well into his late 70s. And he's a local owner. He's from Victoria, British Columbia, but he actually lives in West Vancouver. And on top of all of that, he's a minority owner. He's South Asian by heritage. So he's the first minority owner in the Canadian Football League. And perhaps he'll be able to tap into, we have a large ethnic population in Vancouver, a lot of South Asians who are not really turned on to football. So perhaps he might be an entree into this market and make it the audience that follows the BC Lions kind of more inclusive.
Yeah, because that's, I know we talk about that too in Toronto, right? Where you have such a diverse population there trying to attract people to watch the games. Similar in Vancouver, just fighting a lot of different other interests, right? That we were talking the Seahawks before we recorded. There's just a lot of other things to do in BC maybe than attend and watch a CFL game.
Yeah, well, one of Doman's first statements was that he wanted to change the fact that young people in downtown Vancouver who are wearing jerseys are wearing Seahawks jerseys and not BC Lions jerseys. And I don't think it's strictly a demographic thing, but over the last 10 years, especially with the rise of the Seahawks under Pete Carroll and the fact that the Lions have sometimes had some down seasons recently, there's been, a huge shift towards watching NFL football. The CFL brand on television, the numbers are actually very good on television. It's just getting people into the stadiums that's the big issue, and many of the same issues in Toronto, which is Canada's largest city, are very prevalent in Vancouver, which is the second largest city. So some of the same reasons the Argos are struggling in Toronto are the same reason the Lions are struggling in this market.
How important is it to have an owner now who is local, who is tapped into the local Vancouver market and to be engaged as he is seeming to be so far? Well, I think that the fact is that, as I say, the previous owner, David Braley, although his heart was in the right place, he actually lived in Hamilton, Ontario. So he really never really tapped into this market, as you said. And I think because Amar Doman has grown up in British Columbia, as I said, he was born in Victoria, lives in West Vancouver. I think he's probably much more aware of where the Lions sit in relation to other teams in the city, especially the Vancouver Canucks, which dominate sports coverage and the following in the city and surrounding areas. Is this a problem that is fixable? Is this a course that we can reverse? Is this something that, or has it been so far in the other direction? Well, I think that's the $64 question, because I don't know whether it can be fixed. Really, when you go to a BC Lions game, and generally speaking, the audience, they do have family members at these games, but I would say predominantly there were the following of the Lions is 50 years and older, and the younger people, which I have kids, my children in their 30s, are much more tapped into. I was for many years a BC Lions beat reporter for the Vancouver Sun, but even when in my own household, people would be watching Seahawks games and wouldn't necessarily be watching CFL games. So I think that's, as I say, the $64 question, whether
people are so far down the road with the NFL that will never change, or whether you can lure some of this interest back to the CFL.
It's just interesting because, Seattle, even living here, the NFL games are so prohibitive expensive to go to, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you're going to watch this stuff on TV, but I would just think, BC Place, we're booked to go to the Calgary when the Stampeders come in October. We're going to go to the game up there, do a road trip. But it just seems like something that maybe is more fan approachable, right? In terms of cost, in terms of, accessibility. That was one of the things that appealed to a lot of people about the XFL was, cheaper tickets than it would be to go to an NFL game.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on which. I mean, definitely CFL games are cheaper than NFL games, but still, I think for a lot of, we have, as you probably do in Seattle, very high cost of living here, high cost of home ownership. I don't know if there is a lot of discretionary income, especially among young families, to even go to a Lions game, because you're with parking and concessions, you're still talking, a couple $300, which is a lot of money for some families. Younger single people, of course, are different, but then I think you have to, use that expression, like make it cool, right? It's not, unfortunately, that's a mindset that the Lions have to face, is that people here, especially a certain demographic, I'm just thinking under 40, don't think it's cool to go to Lions games. In fact, I think even 10% of the Seattle Seahawks season ticket holders come from Canada. So on a day that the Seahawks are playing in Seattle, I mean, there's a huge lineup of cars heading south to go to the Seahawks games. So that. You might say the Lions are better positioned in terms of a certain demographic that can't afford to go to NFL games, but I don't know how you fight that mindset. I guess that's something we'll see in the coming months and years.
Is it when we're in downtown, nearby the stadiums and stuff? Is there a lot of BC Lions marketing? Is there a lot of what is the visibility like for the team and the franchise?
Well, you don't see a lot of this. I mean, they do have posters on buses. You see, especially out in the suburbs, you might see somebody wearing a BC Lions hat or a jersey, but you won't see that downtown. And sort of BC Place Stadium is a big area of condos and young people, and basically where the Lions draw from is the outer reaches, like Surrey, Chilliwack, the eastern suburbs, but they don't seem to attract a lot of people from their core base right in Vancouver. So I say that's another area the Lions have to tap into, and and Doman has said that they have to spend a lot more money just promoting the team and getting their brand and trademark out there.
Yeah, it's because now that you mentioned that, when we were booking, because we were getting like our Airbnb and stuff down there, it is. I mean, it seems to me like it's a really hip downtown, right? There's a lot of things to do there. There's like the Science Museum. I mean, it just seems like it's a very hip, happening kind of downtown area that it would seem like a team would fit in really well there as part of a thing to do. Yeah,
well, I guess you compare it in Seattle to Belltown. It's probably a bigger area. In Vancouver, it's called Yale Town. And you're right, there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of people looking for diversions and activities. And you would think that would be the demographic, just because it's right in their neighborhood, that would go to BC Place Stadium. But it's not true. Like I say, they tend to draw from the outer reaches and from the suburbs.
I saw early on, I guess it's been a week and a half now or whatever since the announcement, they had asked Amar about, potentially like relocating the stadium, right? Doing something more out in the suburbs. It seems like he shot that down pretty quick. Is that a solution? Is that something that we should be looking into, or is that too much money for fixing what would be, Well,
it's certainly too much money for the Canadian Football League, right? I mean, really, BC Place Stadium, where the Whitecaps of MLS and the Lions of the CFL play, was a government funded stadium. I mean, there's very little private money in there. And he did touch on that because the growth of Vancouver is to the east, to the suburbs in the east. So, probably having a stadium further out would be able to tap into that market. But I'm saying you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and certainly in the CFL, it's just not possible. So I think they're at BC Place Stadium for the foreseeable future, and then the government, the provincial government in BC, had 10 years ago had spent a massive amount of money renovating the stadium with a retractable roof. So I just don't see, unless it was a smaller 20,000, 25,000 seat stadium out in the suburbs, I just don't see that happening anytime, probably in my lifetime.
I know it's too early, obviously, to make assumptions about Mr. Doman and how invested or how long term, whatever. But I've heard a lot, and we've interviewed a lot of people that have said, the community owned teams make a little bit of money, right? Put a little bit aside. A lot of the private ownership teams basically lose money until they get tired of losing money, right? And then sell it to someone else. I mean, realistically, just obviously this is first blush and we can't make assumptions too much, but what are your thoughts about this new regime coming in now to BC?
Well, I think one of the things is the previous owner to David Braley, David Braley took over the team in 1996 when it went into receivership. And previous to that, one of the owners was Bill Comrie, who owns the brick furniture empire, but he was from Edmonton. So I think the Lions are already ahead in the fact that they now have an owner who is from this area, is from British Columbia. So I think, as I said, there's a lot of residual goodwill because of the fact that Amar Doman is from this area. And I think he probably he's a football fan. Obviously, that's why he bought the team. His business background is buying distressed companies and turning them into profit-making companies. I don't think he's necessarily looking to make gobs of money with the Lions. I don't think that's possible. But he doesn't want to lose gobs of money either. So I think he's doing this, I think, partly as a sort of a civic-minded gesture or labor of love because he likes football, but it remains to be seen. I mean, maybe if he loses too much money over the years, maybe he'll want to divest himself of the team like previous owners have.
It's that cursed sword where it's like, well, he's not going to make a ton of money, but we're coming in. I mean, it's just the most interesting thing to me where it's like relying on really the goodwill, right, of these, and the biggest thing they always say about, people that have lots of money is they don't like to lose a lot of money, right? And they like to be very cost conscious. And I mean, we're expecting a tremendous amount of money, right, and effort to be needed to kind of rebuild the reputation, right, of the brand of the Lions.
Yeah, and what, like David Braley, as I said, the previous owner, even though he probably lost money on the operation, sometimes what the teams do here, they bid for the right to hold the Grey Cup. And so which is the championship game, of course, of the Canadian Football League, but a lot of times they can make back millions by hosting the team. They have all of the rights. They can to the stadium, to all of the ticket sales, to all of the ancillary events that go on around the Grey Cup. So that is one way where you actually make money in football in Canada. But I would say, generally speaking, the idea is try not to lose too much money. That's the biggest objective. And of course, community-owned teams such as the Saskatchewan Roughriders actually make money, and they make a tremendous amount of money actually on their merchandising. I think only the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens in Canada sell more merch than the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
I will say, yes, I had purchased, it's en route, my BC Lions hat. Interesting that it almost costs more than the hat to ship the hat. And I know it's Canadian money, so it's, the exchange rate's a little off, but it was very interesting to me that it was about double to ship the hat than it was, to actually purchase the hat.
Well, of course, it works the other way for us too, right? When we're getting something shipped from the States, of course, it usually costs more, but not to knock the U.S. Postal Service. I'm a big supporter of the UPS.
So moving forward, I think people feel optimistic. I think we need to, what are we looking at here? We're going to get through this season, right? I think Amar kind of said that too, let's ride this out. What are you expecting to see? What are you hoping to see, I guess, before we let you go?
Well, the biggest thing, and he'll admit this too, is that, the team has to be competitive. If they, the previous season, 2019 was a terrible season. They only won 5 of 18 games. So I think they just basically have to keep their heads above water, be competitive. They don't necessarily have to win it all, but they can't go into a losing spiral. So I think that's basically just get through the season. Show people that you're a competitive team, and start planning for the future. So, like I say, it's early days here under this new administration, and it's early days, of course, for the Lions. For the CFL season. So we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds.
Yeah, I am a little scared. We had our big pro Argos McLeod Bethel Thompson episode 2 weeks ago, and then he got pulled from the game, halftime after we did that episode. And then last week it was all in on the Lions, and then they lost immediately following our live episode. So I don't know if we're a jinx on this, but I certainly hope that the Lions' fortune improves over the rest of the CFL season.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's kind of, we're right on the fence a little bit here, right? It could go either way, but hopefully it'll go upward and onward.
Mike, I really appreciate your time today and setting this up with CFL News. And I'm sure hopefully we can ping you back in the future when we kind of get some actionable stuff. But it is great to kind of just have interesting things to talk about outside of it. Obviously, we love analyzing and breaking down the football, but I do love kind of the business aspect of it as well. So this is fascinating for me.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Reed, and best of luck with your show in the future.
Perfect. Thanks again. Well, Tim Baines, I'm very excited to have you back here today. The last time you were on, we had no football to talk about at all. I'm trying to remember even what we talked about. I think it was a lot of preseason speculation. How are you doing now that we are headed into week 4 of the CFL season?
It's almost surreal. Wow. You can talk about the what ifs and let's get this thing going. And here we are. No, it's great, man. It's good to see. It's good to actually see a crowd, to see people watching a football game and cheering and, being able to get out of the house. I went to my first live game in Saskatchewan. I did not go to Edmonton, and last week went to the Saskatchewan game, and 25,000 plus people. And we're looking at 15,000 people. That's all the health officials will allow, but we're looking at 15,000 people in Ottawa on Saturday. So let's go.
Yeah, I'm really excited. But it does feel, I love the number of teams, right? I love the weekend matchups. It fills my need of kind of what the XFL was. I can watch every game, right? I can keep track of all the players, and I've watched every minute of every game, the last 2 weekends. Really just exciting. I've heard some people complain a little slow, a little sluggish. It's felt really good to me. How has it felt to you?
It does feel definitely like they are a step behind, but that's what happens. I think whatever league it is, I think that's what happens early in the season. And you have to take into account, these guys didn't play any preseason games. So they're coming out of training camp mode really with not a lot of contact, and they're going out onto a football field and putting on their helmets and doing it for real. So I think you're seeing it progress. Now we're into week 4, and I think I think really the offenses are starting to catch up, because if there's one thing I think that's lagging behind, it's the offense. I think you're seeing the defenses. It's just more. There's just more to it on offense, and I think you're going to see that start to pick up. And we'll get back to the CFL that we know, which is the 48 to 45 games in some cases. So, let's see what happens this weekend.
Well, like I said, I love it. I think a good defensive stop is as exciting, right? Sometimes as a long pass. Certainly for Ottawa, I know that their defense has been considerably strong lately as Tim pops his energy drink, which is good. I will say, you're coming into enemy territory now. I have converted. I'm a BC Lions fan, right? We're taking on Ottawa this weekend. First home opener for the Red Blacks. I want to hear about how the BC Lions are going to just walk all over Ottawa this weekend.
If only it were that simple. Well, I mean, these are the number 8 and number 9 ranked teams in the CFL according to the CFL Power Rankings. So maybe our expectations shouldn't be much. No, I think you're looking at, and with the way things have gone so far with BC, I think we're going to be looking at Michael Riley at quarterback this weekend, but you never know. Ottawa has really, really struggled offensively for game 1, 1 yards passing, and I think game 2 was a little over 170. That's 250 yards of passing offense in 2 games. That's not the CFL. That's not what we've come to know. I think they did take steps ahead last week. And I would expect, I'm thinking this game, I don't know. I think it's going to be 27 to 24 for one of the teams.
I hope.
You seem to think it'll be for BC. So, no, I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think that one team is noticeably better than the other. And I think Ottawa's their defense and their special teams is good. It comes as advertised.
Yeah, it is weird that Ottawa is still the low, bottom of the barrel in the power rankings, right? I've seen a lot of complaints online that they're not getting enough respect. I think it was last week they were ranked, below teams that had no wins, right? Hamilton obviously 0-2. So what is the negativity on, not negativity, but just people, are people sleeping on Ottawa? What is the deal going on?
I guess I get it more this week. I got it less last week when they were 1-0, so undefeated, and one of those wins came against an 0-2 team. So I don't think when you're doing a power ranking system, you necessarily should be looking ahead and thinking, what will this team be? In my mind, it's what is this team right now? And at the time, they were 1-0, and in my opinion, better than the team that they beat the week before, the Edmonton Elks, who were 0-2. I think you can make a pretty good argument right now that, in fact, they should be ranked number 9, and you can probably make an argument that BC, which does have a win, could be ranked number 8. But again, until Ottawa's offense really starts taking it to another level, it's pretty hard to take this Ottawa team, seriously as a team that can be up there with the elite of the league. Although they were only a touchdown behind to Saskatchewan with, I think, less than 10 minutes left to play in last week's game. So, again, their defense, I think, and special teams can keep them in games until the offense really finds another gear.
Is this a Ottawa offense issue, or is this a quarterback issue?
I think a lot of people will make it a quarterback issue. I think it's a newness issue. It's a newness of the offensive personnel. It's not just a quarterback. It's easy to say, okay, well, you only have 71 yards passing and you only have 170 yards passing. That's on your quarterback. To an extent, you could look at the quarterback did have some arm soreness in training camp, didn't practice several days, says he's at 100% right now. But I think you have to look at an offensive line. It starts with the offensive line. There are 2 guys with significant CFL experience on that offensive line. There are 3 guys without significant experience. When you're trying to put together a scheme and you've got 3 guys that have played, two of them with no CFL experience and one with less than, with 12 games of CFL experience. That's very difficult. When you try to bring in, a running back really doesn't have a lot of CFL game experience. Receivers, not a lot other than RJ Harris, not a lot of CFL experience. I think really when you put all those moving parts into a blender and you toss them around a bit, it really, really is going to take time. So when it's to simplify it and say, well, it's your quarterback, well, it's a synchronicity thing. There's a lot of different things in play here, and they really, really need time. So I think I said before the season, this is an offense that we'll know what the offense is, I think, after 4 or 5 games. If they can come out of that first 4 or 5 games with 2 or 3 wins, then they're going to be in decent shape. And maybe the offense, you find out after 4 or 5 games, maybe the offense isn't that good. But it's really, really tough to determine that right now. And it's tough to pin blame on Matt Nichols. Tough to pin blame on any one particular element of it. I think it just needs time before we can properly evaluate.
How big of a hurdle has it been, the retirements that happened off-season with Brad Sinopoli and Alex Mateus, in terms of not having a good receiving core to go to, or an experienced receiving core?
Obviously you lose Sinopoli. Sinopoli's not your number one receiver, but it's a big blow. He's a multi-time 1,000-yard receiver, and an excellent complimentary guy. And if you've got RJ Harris and if you've got Brad Sinopoli, and you've got a guy like Ryan Davis and maybe Devontae Dedmon getting some reps, it's a different receiving core. And Jalen Saunders was a loss. You talk about the offensive line, Alex Mateus, a former number 1 overall pick at center, just a solid guy in there. And his backup steps away for the year. So Alex Fontana, another first-round draft pick, who would have stepped in at center and who may very well have played at guard had Mateus come back. So those were significant losses, and it's not like they happened in January or February. The team had to adjust on the fly. These things are happening a couple of weeks in advance of training camp. So really, they were setbacks that maybe they still haven't gotten over.
Yeah, it's just hard. I like a defense-heavy team. I like Washington football team. In the NFL, they made it to the playoffs, with basically 3 different quarterbacks last year. So, it can be done, right? Defense can win games. We had Stevie Myers wanted to make sure, a listener, that ask you how short of a leash you think Matt Nichols is going to have now moving forward. We've seen, obviously, a lot of QB shakeups already. Calgary wasn't intentional, but then obviously with the Argos, we've seen, the swapping of quarterbacks. What do you think Matt Nichols' future looks like here so far?
I think they're going to give him a long leash. I think they have to. Really, the backup plan right now is Dominique Davis, who had the job in 2019, and quite frankly, it didn't work out. Could he be a starting quarterback? I honestly, I think there are a lot of people in our nation, and a lot of Red Blacks fans probably hope that doesn't happen, because it's one of those, we've seen that before. And it didn't work. So I'm not sure that they're going to, as long as Matt Nichols' arm is healthy, I think they're going to leave him in there. And in fact, the bigger competition may come from either the number 3 or the number 4 guy, who I like a lot, Caleb Evans and Taron Christian. I think really Ottawa's never developed its own starting quarterback. It's just never worked out that way since 2014. They've gone out and signed or traded for quarterbacks. And I think that one of these guys, I've been impressed watching them in practice. I was impressed watching them in training camp. And I think either one has a chance to be a legit CFL quarterback. But I don't think we're going to get a look at either one of them unless the season really goes wrong and Ottawa decides to take maybe a look toward the future. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. I think Matt Nichols is your guy.
Yeah, I was trying to, Dane Evans, right? Dane Evans was here. I was like, I knew there was another swap out where he is getting the start this week, right, for Jeremiah Mazzoli. It's weird to me. This is obviously our first CFL season, right, covering it in full, but without the preseason, having these swaps and these, it seems like the Lions looked great the first week and then they stunk it up. And, it's just, I guess it's all that learning that you would have done normally in the preseason, right?
It just really, really takes time. It's not like you flip a switch and you go from no football in a year and a half into full football mode. The NFL guys played last year, and what's in a lost season? What is there in no preseason games in a training camp that begins in July as opposed to in mid-May. And we've got a pandemic around us, which changes the dynamic as well. So you'll see these teams hit full stride. It's going to take a while.
Talk about, the home opener, being at home, welcoming fans again. What is that experience going to be like for you and for the people that are going to be attending the game?
Just surreal, I guess, especially looking down and seeing. Now, being in Saskatchewan, in Regina last week, it's almost like there's no pandemic happening. It's not that people don't have COVID. It's just that there's nobody in the stands wearing masks. You go into the malls or into a casino, nobody's wearing masks. So it's a bit different here in Ontario. Fans in the stands are going to be asked to wear masks. So it'll be a little bit different looking down and seeing that. And of course, the news broke this past week that as of their game September 22nd, it will be a mandate. Fans will have to show proof of vaccination or of a negative COVID test. So I think for a lot of people who've gotten the vaccines, that's going to be a relief. I think you'll see some people, some true blue Red Blacks fans will not be at the game this weekend because they don't want to think about the person behind them or 3 seats over is a potential carrier of COVID.
It's hard. My wife and I are going to a concert on Sunday, and I just got an email today, and they said, you're going to, same thing, right? We're going to have to show vaccine cards or traveling. We just got back from Hawaii and it was the same thing, but it is becoming normal in sporting and everywhere, right? I mean, this isn't just a Canada thing or just a CFL thing. I mean, we're going to Marymore Park. It's an outdoor park concert, tons of space, no seating really of any kind. And it's still trying to, protect people and keep everybody safe. I read a wonderful article you posted yesterday, right? About Ottawa and the enforcements and all that stuff. I didn't want to get too, COVID heavy on this, but obviously, I feel like the Red Blacks are joining. There's only a couple outliers now that aren't really enforcing that stuff moving forward.
It's, they're in some ways they're catching up to the NFL and some of the restrictions they're putting down and some of the freedoms that they're giving the vaccinated players. But some of these rules are geared towards getting teams up to the 85% vaccination level, and right now there are very few teams in the CFL have it, and you'd be watching football tonight except for one of the CFL teams has 12 players that have tested positive for COVID, so that game has been postponed. And it's, I don't want to get political or talk about too much about COVID either, the goods and the bads, but we're still in a pandemic, and I'm just hoping we get through the season, and hopefully we're looking at a whole new different landscape in 2022 where it's a bit more of an afterthought.
Yeah, I keep checking Twitter because we're going to put this episode to bed tonight for tomorrow, waiting to see if they make an announcement about, when are the Argos playing or when, just because I know that the second we hit publish on it, oh yeah, they're playing on Monday or whatever. So I'm kind of hoping that news, kind of surprising that news hasn't come out. I mean, obviously I know that they're doing the tracing and figuring out all the numbers, but I would just call that a wash now and just give it to the Argos if it was me,
I'm surprised you haven't asked me about CM Punk or cult of personality, like, the music fan that you are and the wrestling fan and all that stuff. But we'll talk Red Blacks and we'll talk CFL. It's okay.
We'll get to that. I had to go more. I don't want to be accused of not being the CFL. I do want to get your thoughts on wrestling here at the end. My last question I can tell you're chomping at the bit for that. My last question, what storylines are we watching? Is it Saturday? When are they playing? Saturday, the Lions, Ottawa. What storylines are we looking for in that game?
It is Saturday. So the Red Blacks have recently put in a rule that day 3 of each practice is a non-report day. So I'm allowed to go to practice, which I did today. I'm allowed to observe, but I can't tell you who was and wasn't practicing today, which would give you a good indication because anybody off the field today is probably not going to be in the walkthrough tomorrow. The interesting storylines, one thing, one of their key defensive lineman Cleon Lang is not going to play this weekend. It's not an injury. We're being told it's a family matter, but he will not be available because once you leave the team, there's a quarantine thing. And so, I really don't believe he'll play this weekend. That's a key loss for them from their defensive line. But guys we didn't see, there were some defensive backs that were missing last week. And we're hoping that Nolan McMillan comes back and plays right guard. Again, it gives them veteran presence in the offensive leadership as well on the offensive line. And we'll see what happens at receiver. Anthony Coombs didn't play last week either. So they really need, it's not like these guys have the explosive offense. They can't really afford to missing these parts. They need these guys in the lineup. Another thing we'll find out, I guess, tomorrow when they release their lineup, Timothy Flanders injured in last week's game, replaced by Devontae Dedmon, who had very, very, very few reps at running back, but really was the best available guy on the roster, went in and did a really good job, scored a touchdown. So we'll see what they do with that spot, whether Flanders is back this week. And I have a pretty good idea, but again, I can't say. But whether that Dedmon, Flanders gets back in and Dedmon gets some reps, or maybe they bring another running back in to fill that spot.
Did you glean any info from America's team, the BC Lions, on your press call?
America's team, that's funny.
Well, I'll steal Rob Peterson's gimmick the other way, but the Markcast team, the official Markcast team, the BC Lions, how was their press call?
I talked to Rick Campbell yesterday. They had an availability with the former longtime Ottawa REDBLACKS coach Rick Campbell. I guess sort of a friend of mine. Like a guy's here that long, and you get to know him a bit. Maybe a beer or two, and a lot of conversations. So he's really looking forward. I mean, Ottawa really became a home for him. And I know he's looking forward to coming home, but more importantly than that, he's looking to take home 2 points as the head coach with the Markcast official team, America's team, the BC Lions, coming to town. And he'd like nothing better, I'm sure, than to put a beating on his old team.
Okay, now we'll get a little AEW here. I had weddings all weekend. So I had weddings Friday, Saturday. We drove to the coast. So I missed all of the punks of the world, CM Punk and AEW. I missed all the Roman Reigns, John Cena, even though I saw that match in person 5 years ago at Hell in the Cell in Los Angeles. What takeaways from CM Punk's big return to AEW?
Well, and we should be talking about like Iron Maiden and metal music and hard rock music and Foo Fighters and who knows what. But we'll go, maybe next time we could talk about, like, because I have a thing for like 70s hard rock and Run for the Hills and Maiden and all that stuff. Next time. It's really interesting, the wrestling landscape right now, because you've got the reemergence Brock Lesnar as a face, which really
with like a ponytail.
I don't know what the look is.
Yeah, it's a weird look.
He doesn't look quite as mean as he used to look, but it's something that WWE needs, really on the heels of AEW bringing in CM Punk, which is for those that follow wrestling is huge. I mean, I can't think of anybody of a bigger move they could have made, and certainly with AEW, apparently there are other former WWE stars on the way. I think my allegiance has shifted. I really, really enjoy watching AEW on Wednesday nights. I probably of any WWE show, NXT on Tuesdays is probably my favorite, and the old go-to, the standard Raw on Monday nights is just it's almost unwatchable at times. And here we are talking wrestling. Like, come on, like CFL is real. Like, isn't WWE in it? Don't they like decide those things ahead of time in wrestling?
I've told my wife this because I've really been turned off to WWE, and I've lived through the whole Roman Reigns, right? I lived because I'm younger, right? I mean, I was Austin, Rock, all that, but then I lived through Cena. Now I love Cena, but I hated Cena for a long time. And I've lived through Reigns, and it's like I'm so tired of, in a world where you can literally write whatever storyline you want and have whoever win at any given time, that you have so many fans that are so frustrated with your product. I'll never understand where you can, the BC Lions, we could script them to win every game, right, in the WWE, but yet it's like continually the people are upset and frustrated. I don't understand that booking.
Who would be the BC Lions? Like, you have to create a face and a heel on that team. who would be your face and who would be your heel, or even CFL? Like, have you got one guy that would have to be the bad guy and one that could be your hero?
Well, I think Bo Levi Mitchell is kind of he's the prototypical. I mean, I think he would transition into wrestling easy, right? I mean, I think he's kind of like a heel, cocky kind of, right? He's got the tattoos, he's got the bandana, everything. So
right. He probably liked playing that, but now you got to create a face. You got to have like somebody for him to go up against.
Well, I will say I was following his tremendous performance against the BC Lions, James Wilder. I saw that he commented online that I guess he had been in talks to go to WWE at one point. That's astounding to me.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And decided to come back to football. Well, he's still got time. I mean, these guys can do that WWE thing almost. Christian he's got to be 40, I don't know, 47, 48.
Well,
I don't know.
Bill Goldberg just headlined SummerSlam. So,
oh my God!
And Bill Goldberg, I think, is older than either one of us. So.
It's funny, you've got former football players, like once they're done their football career, they turn over to wrestling. God, I'm thinking way back in the CFL, Angelo Mosca, like a CFL legend, went over and King Kong Mosca in the wrestling ring. But CFL, it's real, and we've got some exciting stuff going this weekend. I guess we get it going. Montreal and Hamilton should be a good matchup, and here we go into week 4.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. I appreciate it. I appreciate we're going to do some Alouettes coverage later on the show for their home opener as well. So I think it should be fun. Hopefully a good weekend of football here. So
yeah, let's go. And then I'm trying to think, like I'm looking outside and it's been so hot here. I don't know what the weather is there, but I never complain. I love tropical. I love Caribbean. I love warm climates, but we've had a string of days and we watch practice from the stands and it's again, 90 degrees. We've had, I don't know, 1 week, 2 weeks, every straight day is sunny and 90 degrees. And then I think about the Grey Cup being played in the middle of December in Hamilton. And I guarantee one thing, it won't be 90 degrees. And I probably will be wearing more than, today I'm out with an umbrella. Like I look like this 80-year-old man with my umbrella in the stands because it's so hot. It's draining me. So yeah, Grey Cup. I'm guessing I'll probably be wishing it was 90 degrees in the middle of December as the snowflakes are hitting, and temperature is somewhat below that freezing mark.
Well, we have our tickets booked. We have our flights booked. We have our Airbnb. So we're just waiting for our, American media access right to the game, but, or we'll purchase tickets, however all that works, but we have everything booked. So we will be there. So I don't want to hear any, you Danny Austins of the world, what are you guys trying to do? We will be there. We have our flights booked. So, Tim, I want to thank you for coming on. If you come back a third time, I might show you my Iron Maiden tattoo that I have on my back. So I bet you didn't expect that to be coming. So.
That I don't know. That's overwhelming.
That's overwhelming.
I don't know if I want you, getting down to that, but we could talk a little music maybe next time.
Was equally overwhelming to my wife the first time she saw that, and she said, "Wow!" So that's a good one. Tim, worst of luck this weekend against the Lions with the Red Blacks, and thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, you know what? I'm not really biased either way, so it's not like I'm a Red Blacks fan. Although I cover them, I told the line right down the middle. So I hope it's a good football game. Our nation, the football fans have been waiting a long, long time for this. They haven't played a game since early November of 2019 here at the stadium. So really, really highly anticipated. And just looking forward to seeing the game.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me on. Enjoy your day.
Thanks. Well, we have Tim here from the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. I want to thank you so much for coming on a Dirty American CFL podcast. No, I'm teasing. But thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing so far in the CFL season?
Well, considering that the Owls had an extra bye week, like everybody else at the beginning of the season, it's been an extra 7 days. But considering that, the CFL's back and we had the first Alouettes home game and it's going to be 656 days, 656 days tomorrow or on Friday. So, I'm stoked. I really am stoked.
Yeah, it's been exciting. We're learning all this CFL stuff. I was with Edmonton. I think I've avoided that. I was
Like the plague.
Well, that's like when you're at the party and you leave early and then the cops come in and shut everything down. I feel like we've gotten off that. So I'm with the Lions, but I do feel like I watched the Alouettes. I've watched every game the last 3 weeks. I like the French logo, right? It's I like that. I like that it's kind of like wrestling where we're all in on the gimmick, we're the French speaking Montreal team, right? I mean, I like, there's a lot about the Alouettes. I like, what is it about them and everything? I mean, you've built your whole life out, season ticket holder, all this around the Alouettes. What is the appeal to you?
It's funny for me, because I did not, when it came to Canadian football, I really didn't catch on until probably till 96, 95, 96, right before we got a team. Most of my, I think, fandom itself and the camaraderie that all the players have and with the fans and vice versa was through the Arena League. So I think my fandom started in the Arena League. It went forward to the CFL, and I love the game. I really do. It's such a unique game in itself. I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to buy season tickets in 97 when I had the shot. So it was like, I got to do this. I've always wanted to do this. But Canadian football is so much fun. So much fun, no matter which city you're in. It's just so much fun to watch.
So, Alouettes came out, they had the first week bye. Second week looked really good, right? Really strong. I thought the defense felt very swarming, overwhelming, right? What happened last week? Was it just we don't know Jake Mayer and what is happening? I mean, what happened last week, do you think?
I think it was a couple of things, where the first thing is, I think the Alouettes, whether they said it or not, I think they, kind of overlooked who their starting quarterback was. I think as soon as they heard that Bo Levi wasn't starting, it didn't matter for them who it was going to be a quarterback. And even though I'm sure the players won't tell you that. But then if you look at the game itself, something was just seemed to be a little bit off with Vernon Adams, in my opinion, whether it was throwing into triple coverage, double coverage. Some of his passes were really, really short, which isn't really Vernon. It's not his MO. He's usually pretty spot on. And then penalties. 18 penalties total, 8 by the defense. Shot themselves in the foot so many times last week. Gave Calgary they gave them the yardage that was needed to allow them to continue a drive. And, sure, the Alouettes did what they needed to do at the end of the game. But again, Geno Lewis, foot was in the end zone, but the pass was short. And that's how the game ended. So, I mean, it's something that they really need to improve this week, obviously, versus Hamilton.
Yeah, but that was quite the discussion online, was that final TD. And what kills me about all that is, never mind the 100+ yards of penalties and everything else and all the other drop passes. They're like, well, that last pass of the game, it's like, well, it didn't hit the end zone, right? It didn't cross the plane, but that was one of 1,800 things that didn't go right on, for the game. It's just always funny to me when people harp on that so much.
Well, we're all Monday morning quarterbacks. Even myself and my co-host, Cliffy D. Pine, we are what we are. We're fans, and we're allowed to be able to do it. But I mean, I think we all need to take off our sunglasses and look at the team objectively. That's what we try to do, as best our ability. But I mean, it's funny that last play really didn't stand out in my mind more or less to what Vernon Adams did earlier in the game. You remember when he threw the I think it was the out route to the pylon, and what did the ball do? It smacked right off the pylon. So that was the Vernon Adams that I was hoping to see. But you know what? The last play was just the culmination of everything that happened last week.
Yeah, that like laser accuracy. I mean, they're remarkable about that. I do remember now that you bring that up. It's funny, and with the Calgary thing, I used an analogy on Twitter this week. I said, because in the XFL last year, we had a thing where the Seattle Dragons, Brandon Silvers was our quarterback. And I think it was week 4, they benched him and brought in BJ Daniels, right? And we almost beat the Battlehawks, who were really great, right? And so I said, well, is that kind of the Jake Mayer effect where, we're not able to game plan. We're not, we're prepared for Bo, or we're not prepared. This guy comes in and we just don't know him. And I thought, wow, this is like, I am like mega Mark now using, these exit mile. It made me realize why I host this podcast. But it felt like they just weren't really prepared. Like you said, that maybe they just had overlooked it and they just didn't really expect really of anything. And Jake ended up being an exceptional, I thought, played very well.
Oh, he did. But and again, I think that goes just to, I guess, the coaching in the CFL itself is that, I guess, no matter who you are, if you're coached by the right person and you get the right, people behind you, you're going to play well. And that's, I mean, it's Calgary. They have been a factory for quarterbacks, for wide receivers, for coaching, for you name it, they've had it. So it's not surprising that he did as well as he did. Now, obviously, aside for him, it'll be what can he do the next game? That's the next question, because now everybody will have film on him. But
how are we feeling? Tiger Cats coming off the bye, right? Dane Evans, right, is starting. Jeremiah Mazzoli's out. I guess rib injury. How are we feeling about that matchup? I had very difficult times with my fantasy pick'ems this week in terms of who I thought was going to take the win on that one.
Well, I'm hoping first and foremost that the Alouettes learn from what they should not have done last week. Obviously, Dane Evans is not the same type of quarterback, especially what he did last year for the Tiger Cats. I mean, he was basically brought them to the Grey Cup. They just need to be very careful. I mean, yes, it's going to be fun and all to be at home in front of the fans. They'll feed off of it, I'm sure, no matter if there are, because Quebec's being limited by size to 12,000. I think maximum 13,500 fans in a 25,000 seat stadium over Percival Molson. It won't matter. They're going to be loud. I think they'll be amped up on that. But the thing is, they just got to be careful. No matter how many of the Tiger Cats that are currently going to be out, because they have a few, whether it be through injury or through COVID protocol, this is the defending Eastern champ. It still is the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And these two teams have been going at it for years and years. And it's not one of them, it's not Toronto Hamilton, but these two teams still, I think, sure have a lot of animosity toward each other.
Are we expecting, Vernon Adams, is he the franchise guy moving forward? I mean, is this someone that, is this the right option? Is this the best option?
I think so. I mean, considering what they're paying him and the contract that they gave him, that he signed a couple of years ago, I think so. And I think for those of you who don't follow each team specifically and just follow the CFL, one thing that stands out to me the most about Vernon Adams, during this offseason, he actually, on his own dime, flew in wide receivers and flew in a couple of, another quarterback and some of his DBs. He paid for everything: hotel, flights, food, and they had an unofficial mini camp in Seattle. That, to me, shows the type of man that Vernon Adams is. And I think that finally we can say that I think, VA is going to be the guy. It's just, he's learning every day, and you can tell he's very humble. And that's what I love about this quarterback. He's very humble. He knows if he has to improve, he will. He's not too up on himself. No matter how much money he's getting paid, he's all about the team itself. So ever since Anthony Calvillo retired and the umpteen amount of quarterbacks we've had start for this team, I'm so happy to actually have Vernon Adams under center.
Well, and what's remarkable about that is, I mean, contract aside or not, what Vernon Adams is getting paid. I mean, that's something that like Josh Allen did, I think, last year in the offseason for the Bills, right? And Josh Allen just signed like a $248 million contract. Very different for a player like him or Russell Wilson to fly in people down to Malibu or whatever, Aaron Rodgers to train, where it is someone in the CFL to float all that. I mean, that really speaks to his just desire, right, and wanting to create those bonds, because it has to be, and especially this year, and everyone getting signed so late, and the limited training camps, and no preseason, and trying to get any sort of rhythm. I just can't imagine how challenging it would be. We cover a lot of these spring leagues, that only have 2-week kickoff, and then they're going, and it takes a few weeks to really get things going, no matter how skilled of an athlete you are.
Oh, it's true. And I think what people need to remember too is that the CFL, for the first time in forever, as far as I know, in the history of the league, they had no preseason, none. So if people think about it, week 3 this past week, it was in essence the Alouettes' second preseason game. So, everybody is still technically a week up on the Alouettes, but I mean, it was, as we even saw, I think we saw last year in the NFL, because they had, was no preseason last year in the NFL too? Yeah. So, I mean, you saw the differences, even though scoring was up in the NFL. It's weird. It seems to be a little bit better. Offenses and defenses are still having problems getting caught up, but you know what? It's still great football. And even though you never think of CFL being a low scoring league, but still, even with the lower scoring games that we've had so far, it's still been great football.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, again, I was talking with Tim Baines today, and he says, well, it has been kind of sluggish. I'm like, to me, a good defensive, stop and plow, it's. To me, watching it on demand later is helpful for that, to be able to fast forward through a lot of the commercials, right? And a lot of the, 2 and outs and whatever. But it is still, the stories and the announcers, I think the broadcast teams have been on point this whole year. And like you said, telling these stories about Vernon Adams and everything else, it really just helped kind of build the character of these players, which I think is so important in a league where they're not all household names like they are in other leagues.
No, and I think that's one of the things that the CFL needs to really center on. It's the players themselves. I've followed many of the indoor football leagues as an example, where it's been all about the league itself. They kind of remind me a lot about the CFL, where you do have a lot of fans who are just fans of their team itself. I'll give Saskatchewan Roughriders as an example. They care more about the team than the league itself. But it's still about the players. And I think it's one thing that the league really needs to do, is to start promoting the players, which I think they do a pretty good job, especially the broadcast partner in TSN. But it's, what, the league is always going to have its flaws. I think everybody will say that. I mean, even this past year when we didn't play in 2020, but as I said earlier in the interview, the CFL is so much fun. They just need to make sure that they do it right, and hype up what is necessary, whether it be the league or especially the players.
Talk to me about William Stanback. He's certainly someone that caught my eye as kind of a powerhouse. What kind of things we expect to see from him and some of the other star Alouettes players, like Jake Wieneke? I never say the name right, but some of these players that have really gotten the spotlight so far in this limited season.
Well, I think last week, for Stanback, the dude's a beast. Everybody just saw, we saw his stats, what he did last year. In 2019, before he was signed by the Las Vegas Raiders. He's just a complete beast. I think he will get into his own too, because, in the Alouettes' first game of the year, he had 2 drop passes on screen passes. And I think that may have gone away from that. If you look at the footage from last week, there are many an opportunity to go to Stanback, because it seems like the Alouettes in their history have always had a running back that's also been able to do double duty when it comes to catching the ball out of the backfield. So Stanback will always be Stanback. I mean, if he can continue to, I think he's averaging just less than 100 yards so far in his 2 games that he's played. If his consistency and with him and VA, shouldn't be any problem. He should be able to run roughshod, and I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the league in by the end of the year, the league in rushing yardage. As far as the wide receivers, I swear out of all the teams this year, the Alouettes were lucky enough to be able to keep, I think it's not 90 or 95% of their wide receiver core intact, just because of the pandemic. So it gives them a leg up. And I can't just give props to I think to the Alouettes, but if you look at all the teams, you look at these names that you would never expect to see in the CFL. In the NFL. Come to the CFL, they make a name for themselves. I said, like Jake does, BJ Cunningham, Eugene Lewis, and Rayshon Simonize, one of the Canadian starters for the Alouettes. They always seem to be able to get the guys to come in, even if one goes down. So it's, that's what I love about this team. I think that's one of the pluses that the Owls have had in 2021. And I'm hoping that if they can all get it together, be able to go off and we'll continue to win throughout the season. So would be nice. I don't want to see them under 500, but 14 games, man, 4 less games can be tough.
Yeah, there's far less room for error there in terms of making it up in the back end. The more we talk, because I was really bullish on the Alouettes. Stampeders, that game really scared me. Right, the longer we're talking now, I feel better. I am taking the Owls, against the Ticats. What storyline are you looking forward to seeing in the game this weekend?
For me, as I mentioned before, it's the first time the Alouettes have been at home in almost 660 days. I want to be able to see how they're able to feed off the crowd, make sure that, Coach Kahari Jones, I'm sure will not allow what happened last week. Same thing with defensive coordinator Baron Miles. They will make sure that this team is ready to play. For me, it's just to get to 2-1. It's cliche. I know everybody says to go 1-0 each week, but with the Tiger Cats seems to be the perennial favorite to win the East, and from what we've seen in this week's picks from the experts, it seems to be half on who they're picking to win this week. But for the Owls, with all honesty, I think the game story really will be: can Vernon come back from what he did last week? He needs to improve, take advantage of the home crowd, no matter how many people strong we're going to be, and just beat the Tiger Cats. Don't take them lightly, because if you do, the Owls are going to come out with an L, unfortunately.
I know we talked earlier, crowd sizes and stuff. Fan base for Montreal? Obviously this is a storyline we've tracked, even before the season with Toronto. We just was talking with Mike Beamish today about the Lions, them trying to rebuild stuff there. What is that fan base like? Obviously, I would say you're the premier Alouettes, podcast, right? You've been really tapped into all this stuff. So talk to me about the Alouettes fan base and what is that like?
Well, the fan base is, even though the season ticket base itself is, last time I heard, I think it's anywhere between 35 and 4,500 strong. That's a lot less than what it used to be, but I think, it really is, the fan base is, how teams can be in a rebuilding phase. The fan base itself is in a rebuilding phase, specifically because of how bad the Alouettes did over the past, 5 to 7 years. They just were not doing anything. But the fan base is very passionate. The Francophone fans themselves, they're unique in themselves. They're totally aside from what the Anglophone or the English community is in Montreal. But they're a passionate group, and we're going to be limited in what we can actually do this season in stadium, whether it be, it's at limited sizes or social distancing or the infamous vaccine passport, which is going to be starting in the next couple of weeks, which may limit fans coming in even more. But as I think the players themselves are just happy to be playing in front of fans, and I'm going to be ecstatic just to be in front of them. But the crowd will be there. But as I said, in my opinion, I think the fan base itself is in a little bit of a rebuilding period.
I don't want to, ask you questions you don't know or whatever. When you talk 3,500 to 4,500, right, season ticket, roughly. On par, what is the average CFL season ticket membership?
you can look at Saskatchewan. I can only imagine what Saskatchewan is, because they to me are the perennial when it comes to the top spot for season tickets. Them, Edmonton, Winnipeg itself too. Toronto, don't even start me with Toronto. I don't even know what it is, Toronto. I mean, they seem to can't even fill BMO Field in any capacity. Hamilton, they're quite, I'm sure they're up there too. But again, the Owls have been higher in years past. But I mean, they've been, from what I've heard from across the league, the teams have been very accommodating in 2021 specifically because of what's happening. They may not be there, but they are allowing them to come back or to push forward their season tickets until 2022. So it's unlike the NFL, very similar to what the spring leagues are and the indoor leagues and the arena leagues. It's all gate driven. So I can understand why they didn't play in 2020 with no fans, but I mean I got off topic there. Sorry about that, but it's Saskatchewan really, I think. But Montreal, I wouldn't even. They're probably the lower tier of the when it comes to listing all the other teams as season ticket holders.
At this point, someone's commenting on the YouTube and saying that we're actually, that someone right now is like typing the exact numbers of this. And it's like, okay, I was just kind of.
Please do. Let me know.
Yeah, I just kind of curious about it. Just to round out the conversation, I mean, I feel good for the Alouettes, right? I feel like they certainly look strong in their first out, disconcerting last week. But I mean, overall outlook for the season moving forward, how are we feeling?
I've already said, I think, Hamilton is still the team to beat. I put the Alouettes second behind the Tiger Cats. The question is, how close will they be? This game on Friday will be the start of the chaos on how it's going to end. You get one up on Hamilton this year, especially in the Eastern Division. That one game in the win column can make all the difference in winning the East. I'm hoping for an over 500 season, playoffs. And I think if the team can play as well as they did in week 1 versus the Elks, I could easily see the Alouettes going to the Grey Cup.
I think a strong defense is there. I've said before on here, I'm a Washington football team fan, right? And all defense, they won, they damn near won they won the division last year with hardly even a quarterback. So I think that, as long as Vernon Adams is serviceable, right? And they're not getting beat on penalties, I don't think there's anything from what I saw, like you said, against the Elks, anything that would stop me from having, all the confidence in the world in them compared to some of the other outings we've seen the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, the only thing it's up, obviously, is if VA does happen to go down, we do have a capable backup in Schultz, in Matt Schultz, but it's after that, with only the rosters only able to hold 2 quarterbacks on the current roster. Let's hope that we don't get to that point, but in football, and as we know, anything can happen. So.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate, scheduling this and getting this going. It worked out well with the home opener, and I'm excited to see it and just continuing to learn about all these wonderful teams and everything else. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me, man. And I will admit, I hadn't caught on to your show at the very beginning, but I really love what you guys are doing there. I'm really impressed.
Well, you're probably better off now. I mean, I would just, I think we're better now. I think there was a lot of hatred going on with a lot of these things for the last few months. And it is so nice to have 3 conversations a day about 3 different football teams and really just talk about football. It's been very rewarding and not have to deal with a lot of the stuff that we've had to talk about the last few months. So yeah.
Oh, for sure. And you guys do what you needed to do. You were able to shift and to get to that next level because it's fun talking about football. No matter what league it is, it's always fun to talk about football.
That's where I'm at. Tim, thank you so much again. Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to the show. Want to thank our guests, Mike Beamish, Tim Baines, Tim Capper, Tims and Mike.
Get the Tims on. I like that. I like a pair of Tims on the show. So.
All right. Moving forward with our more CFL news. Ticats are naming Dane Evans starting quarterback for week 4 against Montreal. Apparently, Jeremiah Masoli has been limited during the week with an injury due to his ribs. We don't want to see anyone get injured, even though I do not like Jeremiah Masoli. We still don't want to see anybody get injured. So Mr. Evans has been named the starting quarterback.
How I don't know if you're not on social media a lot right now, but I did comment on the 3 down story. I go, Paul, please keep it down. I can hear you cheering from now that Jeremiah Masoli isn't playing.
I would never cheer an injury, sir. I'm not a Philadelphia fan. I would never do that.
Okay, well, but this, to be fair, I saw the Dane Evans starting story before I saw the Masoli injury story. That came out originally. I just thought because they're 0-2. Masoli has not played phenomenally, and that was why I thought they gave Dane Evans a start. So
he probably has been. Masoli's probably been injured for a while. He probably got injured in that first game against Winnipeg, and now it's like, oh, now we got to say he's injured. That's more likely the scenario. More like this scenario. Speaking of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Darius Sirocco realizes the offensive line needs to improve after a poor start because Jeremiah Masoli's injured. That's clearly probably your fault, Darius, on the offensive line.
This is why I included this. This is basically like the prototypical, like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Like, well, we're 0-2. Our quarterback's injured. Like, yeah, we really need to step up that offensive line. I don't know. A lot of people are calling for the Ticats upset this weekend against the Alouettes. I don't bet, but I have my fantasy pick 'em on the Alouettes.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
I got rocked over the weekend in my fantasy picks because with the Stampeders upset and then obviously the Lions upset. I mean, it was not a good. The Argos beat the Blue Bombers. I mean, it was like not a good weekend for Reed's pick'ems across the board. So.
All right, so what's this? James Wilder Jr. bringing the juice to Elks and dispels false high maintenance me first narrative?
Yeah, so James Wilder, we did a story about him a couple weeks ago. He's the guy that likes to have his shirt up, right? He likes to show his midriff. And Coach Elizondo came out and said, knock it off. We're not going to do that. So the next week, and it was too bad, it was against America's CFL team, the BC Lions, but James Wilder ran for like 150 yards. I mean, it was crazy. And I text Jim Mullen, I go, isn't it phenomenal how much, and the Elks, he had played good the week before too, weeks 2 and 3. I go, isn't it phenomenal how much better James Wilder plays when he's not worried about showing his abs off and he's just running, right? He's just running the football. He played phenomenally. The other thing that came out online about this, I guess he was going to join WWE at some point. Do you know about this?
I don't know about this. Was he going to join it before they decided to go and get rid of all their really talented individuals in NXT? Or was it, how big is the guy? Like, I don't know. I don't know much about his height, weight, and that kind of thing, because the WWE developmental system's only looking for big people now, folks. They only want people that are like Roman Reigns or Walter or something like that. He's
6'3", 232.
That's not a bad height, not a bad weight.
I'm telling you, I don't like this guy because he plays for the Edmonton Elks, right? And we boo on them. But James Wilder is a phenomenal talent. I mean, he really did. The Elks, they couldn't stop him. It was like a knife through hot butter. It was just
You turned heel on the Elks real quick. You turned heel on them real quick, man. Love it. CFL teams have been directed to give a new classification on their injuries by league. It says GTD. That's a game time decision. That's try to ease confusion and better communicate game status, which of course plays into the single game betting. I'm sure that has something to do with it there too. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to bet on the Elks this week because someone's got a game time decision, it's going to help you. That might help you a little bit.
Yeah, this is because of obviously America's CFL team, the BC Lions. They had the whole back and forth with Michael Riley, and they didn't know if he was going to start or Nathan Rourke. And so, but now that they're my team, I mean, they're like our team in America. They can be squirrely, right? If they want to be, I'm all for the QB switcheroo now. I mean, do what they want, but this is good. I think that the CFL hasn't had an injury report for, decades, right? So it's like we're implementing this in now and we're trying to figure out what's going on. So
Reed's real favorite team, the Elks, have relieved Chris Rippon of his duties as a special teams coordinator. It was announced Friday afternoon following the 21-16 win over the BC Lions. It's interesting. You win a game and you're going to fire a coach, but hey, stranger things have happened.
Right? Isn't this bizarre that they would win? Also, I thought that I thought I typed this in wrong, but this is copy and pasted from the Edmonton Elks website. They spell coordinator co-ordinator. Is that a Canadian thing?
I think so. It's like the favorite thing. Like they put a U in favorite. And I'm like that. Okay, I'm gonna let it go this time.
But is that how, that's not how we spell it, right? How does word do it? Yeah, coordinator, no hyphen.
No hyphen here in America.
Yeah, it's
no hyphen. We don't say a boot. No, there's none of that here.
Wow, that is crazy. Anyway, Ticats also released left tackle Trevon Tate. This was interesting. They also released reserve quarterback Jamar Smith, which I think is interesting, obviously, because we're going to Dane Evans, Mazzoli. I mean, they can only carry two QBs on the roster at any time. But he had played with the Patriots. He went unselected, and then he was with the Packers before signing. So, I mean, Jamar Smith has definitely been around. I just thought that was interesting that obviously Ticats are trying to clean house and figure out what's going on there.
Yep. Lions Lamar Durant says everyone's got to protect the quarterback, the players, the refs, everyone. Apparently, Lamar Durant said that there was Lamar Durant pointed this out after both teams in his game combined for 265 yards of penalties, and tempers were blowing up. It was a bit of a chippy game. See this is what I'm talking about. The Lions benefit from the exchange on offense. They're spelling offense with a C. Yep. It's bothering my brain, but I understand it's probably proper English, and us Americans have bastardized the language for everybody else. So basically, Durant said, what gets me is we're driving down there and they're getting chippy with their quarterback. And we know any type of football play, you got to protect your quarterback. And he's putting the onus on everyone. I mean, opposing players, don't headhunt the quarterback, basically.
Yeah, it was getting intense in the Lions Elks game. I mean, it was getting a lot of shoving. And the one thing they were talking about a lot this year with the CFL refs is, especially on a lot of running plays, when you lose that forward momentum, they usually blow the play dead. And they've had a lot of like letting them go. And then you kind of get to a point where the guy's like, get off me. And then they fight. And it really has been leading to a lot of like after the play scuffles. And I really wish, I've heard the announcers say that too. They really wish that they would call some of these plays dead earlier. So
get it under control a lot sooner.
Yeah.
That's definitely right. TV ratings are in. 500,000 people for Elks Lions on Thursday. The Blue Jays Tigers game had 701,000 fans compared to the Alouettes and Stamps. They had 544 fans. I know Arash is probably happy about that. Saturday, Red Blacks and Riders got 629,000. Blue Jays Tigers 587,000, and Bombers Argos 429,000. Not bad. Not good numbers there when it comes to everyone else.
I just one Justin Dunn comment. Interesting that the Blue Jays are out of everything and they still pulled in 700,000 views. I mean, that's insane to me.
They're not really out yet. I mean, my Yankees are pulling away now, and we understand that, but I don't think they're out yet. I think there's still a lot of baseball to be played, and they could surprise people. They got a great young hitting core in Toronto. They're gonna be deadly with a couple moves in the offseason. Trust me, they'll be up there. So
it was just interesting that last week when the CFL game beat the Blue Jays, 3 down and donk, they couldn't stop talking. They couldn't shut up about, CFL beats whatever. And then this week, there was like a little story buried on 3downnation.com, like, Blue Jays beat. I was like, it's interesting how, because when you're not a news organization and you're a PR for the league, it is interesting how
Braden says they're a news organization, so let it be known. Let it be known. Power rankings are out. Saskatchewan is number 1. Winnipeg number 2, even though they lost. Toronto's coming in number 3. Shout outs to my team for coming up number 3. Montreal's 4, and at the bottom is the Ottawa REDBLACKS.
Yeah, just a couple things. I talked with Tim. We've heard this now, but interesting. with the REDBLACKS, how low they are, and then obviously, I can't imagine the BC being below Hamilton, and then even the Stampeders. It's the power rankings, but what does that mean? I feel like the Stampeders win last week was such a fluke. I just can't. I can't imagine them doubling down and winning again this week, but we'll have to see. But I do not like the BC. America doesn't like the BC Lions being in 8th. So
that's America, according to you. America, according to you. You can pre-order your Budweiser at Alouettes games now. $9. Is that Canadian dollars or American dollars?
It was Canadian because it was. This is from the on.montrealalouettes.com. Pre-order your beer, but it's cool. Like you can pick your stand. They've got a whole thing. You can pick what section you're in. It's like it's $13 at the game, or it's $9 if you pre-order it. I just thought that was astounding. I thought this is some CFL ingenuity that we need. Like pre-order your beers. Maybe you get.
They do that at Alamo Draft House now. You can order your food and your drinks before you go to the movie. I know I threw it out there. I've been forced to buy my tickets for Shang-Chi coming out next weekend at a different It's an ex-Marvel movie at a different theater because someone doesn't want to go to the one I want to go to all the time. So she's like, it's pain in the butt. So
there you go. Anyway, I just thought, maybe you get so drunk you forget to pick up your beers, right? And then the CFL, like, we're making money. Oh yeah, pre-order a 6-pack, and then like, oh, I forgot to go do that.
So moving on with a little bit of XFL news here. The report is that Big 12 is bringing in former West Virginia AD and XFL Commissioner Oliver Luck as a consultant. Why? The Big 12 is over. What are we doing?
Well, is prepared to navigate life. But I don't know anything about any of this. So I figured that you were smarter than me about this.
So the Big 12 has lost Texas and Oklahoma. They're going to the SEC. They're this is done. This conference is done. It's done. It's like the Southwest Conference now. It's done. It's over. Good game, everybody. It's a wrap. And so now they're bringing in Oliver Luck apparently as a consultant to, I don't know, expand the league I don't know what they're doing here. I don't understand. I don't.
Well, it's something, Luck's a smart guy. He hasn't been working. I mean, he still is, being sued by Vince, and they're going back and forth. I mean, there just hasn't been a lot of Luck stuff lately.
Maybe he needs money. Who knows? Maybe he needs a little money. Like, I know he's got money. I know he's got plenty of money, but maybe he just needs a little bit more to get by on this lawsuit. I don't know. Dallas Cowboys waiving Canadian kicker Lirim Hajrullahu. And then, of course, our favorite person always gets waived by teams is Jordan Tamu, the quarterback. He got waived by the Lions again.
Yeah. So that's your XFL update this week. I mean, again, I love to talk about any of this stuff. I'd be happy to talk about the XFL if there was stuff. I was stunned this week when Mark was saying that he's putting the Week in Review Monday show, the XFL, because he does a Monday XFL and then a Wednesday CFL. I was stunned that he was putting that on hold for the time being until there's news.
I mean, there's no news. So there's no news. I got this really cool thing in the mail, though. I need to talk about this. Was it William? You said William?
Yeah. Well, friend of the show, William.
Friend of the show, William. Complete surprise to me. I was told something was coming, and it's here. It's my very own Toronto Argonauts jersey. Shout outs to William, because look at this. Look at this. It's got the name on the back, sir. It's got the name on the back. Check that out. No numbers, but just the name and Toronto on the front. I love it. It's XL, so it's going to fit me and my fat stomach. I'm really grateful for this. Thank you, William. I will cherish it, and I will wear it every game day when I'm not working, of course. And I can't wear football jerseys to work if I'm, you get what I'm saying. My job's a little bit more. They'd frown. They'd frown on that. But I will definitely wear that whenever I can. I will probably wear it when I travel up to up there Northwest for October 16th. When Reed's team, not America's team, the BC Lions.
CFL team. No, but I have one coming my way too. I photos of mine are pretty sick. So I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, that was cool. I mean, we certainly above and beyond anything to support us and send that in. But that's from the store. That's not a knockoff. I mean, that's from the Toronto store. So
I dig it. Thank you very much, William.
William and I went back and forth, and then William was part of the reason why I moved to the BC Lions, because he said, "Hey, they only have the Eskimos jerseys," and he goes, "You kind of seem like West Coast BC Lions," and this was when all the stuff was going on with Michael Riley and Jim Mullen, and we're booking the trips and everything. And I'm like, I think so. William is the co-commander on this the BC Lions with me and the America's CFL team.
The proximity just makes sense. You're like a stone throw away from BC. And we'll be there October 16th.
We'll be there. October 16th. Yeah, we have our condo downtown, views. We got a sick Airbnb. Not as sick as our Grey Cup Airbnb, but it's pretty sick.
Oh, I know, right? Not as the Grey Cup Airbnb is going to be ill, and I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to probably do some live shows out of there. I've got to figure out how to, because we've got some equipment issues that we probably need to logistically figure out. But it's going to be a cool week. It's going to be a cool weekend to go hit the Grey Cup this year, and we're doing it because we want to do it, and not because we're trying to take advantage or whatever you were accused of.
Well, and low key, so Tim Baines kind of low key invited himself on the Grey Cup show this week, when we were on the interview today, and that's fine because Tim's like, I'm just in Ottawa. It's a quick drive, but
bring them all. Bring everybody on. Not everybody, but you bring
Yeah, we could do AEW talk with Tim Baines, but nobody he did. He's like, oh, you're going to the Great Cup. You're doing the show. He's like, oh, it's not too long of a drive for me. I'm like, oh, okay, Tim. I see what I can pick up what you're putting down, Mr. Tim Baines.
You can invite yourself if you're one of the friends of the show that we've had on. We'd love to have you on again during our live Great Cup show. I don't know. Will we do 2 shows that week? It's going to be up in the air. We're going to figure it out. And we're going to try to do a lot of coverage up there in Hamilton, and it's going to be awesome.
I guess we kind of low-key announced that right now. I think we were going to do that at a more official time, but that's fine. I don't mind.
Fuck it. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to bleep that.
That's too late in the show. I think if you're at this point now, you're okay.
If you're listening at this point, you're like, whatever. Paul's gonna be Paul.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we want to thank everybody again for watching us and subscribing to us. Again, rate us, subscribe us, like us, hit the bell to get notifications when we put up a new episode. Whatever it takes, help us out. And then you can't guilt us when we do get to go to these places and do get to attend games. It's going to be great. Just give us a little bit of love, and we'll definitely try our best to get around to all of these venues, especially once the COVID thing dies down. It's going to be very awesome. And we're going to be here. We're going to be here covering the CFL past this year. Even if the XFL does come into effect, we'll still be covering the CFL. We can guarantee you that. So with that being said, thanks again. We'll see you next week.
And thanks to Mike, Tim, and the other Tim. Mike and the Tims.
Mike and the Tims. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.